So, why accessibility? I'd like to start a panel discussion on how I got started with accessibility and how to build an organization. I, Takuma Hanatani of Front-End Development Center Line Corporation, will moderate this panel discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. Now this hour will be a panel discussion on accessibility and organizations. And in Japan, the internet penetration rate is over 80%. There are more and more opportunities to get information on digital devices, partly thanks to the new lifestyles. I think you all agree that in this day and age, accessibility is essential to ensure that information is accessible in all situations and devices and by everybody. On the other hand, many people think that accessibility is something that only a big company can afford it, or that they don't know what to do with it, even though they are very much interested in. Our forum is for those of you who want to take a first step for accessibility, and we have 4 panelists who are active in accessibility arena in Japan. The theme is why accessibility. We will talk about how to make people aware of accessibility, how to apply this in daily work, and how it has spread throughout the organization. We will be talking about how to make accessibility the norm. We welcome 4 panelists today. First of all, from our line panelist introduction first. From our Line Corporation, Tomita-san, please introduce yourself. I'm Tomita, Front-End Development Center, Writing, CSS, and Markup. I'm Tomita. Nice to meet you all. Then, please, Hashimoto-san of Line, please. I am Kengo Hashimoto from Line Portal Company, and I am Head of Design Office. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you. Now, I would like to move on to our guest speakers. First guest is Must-Be. Please, Must-Be-san. Nice to meet you all. I belong to CyberAgent in charge of accessibility promotion and awareness promotion. People call me Must-Be, but I am Soichi Masuda. Nice to meet you all. Last person is Ito-san. Please introduce yourself. I belong to Maboroshi, a web creation company, and I'm a front-end engineer. I'm Ito. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much. So we have introduced 4 panelists. Will you tell us, okay, we go to the accessibility. The first theme is why accessibility again? Will you tell us what triggered you to get involved in accessibility while you do your job, such as writing a code? If you are an engineer, what was your trigger? And accessibility, what was your trigger? I believe that the first step to make yourself aware of accessibility is very important. So tell us about how you became aware of accessibility, and also how did you become aware of accessibility? And I'll ask you all the panelists. Tell me about your story. As I follow the order of the introduction, so our Tomita-san of Line, please tell us what happens to you. Recently, I was drawn to internet website. I was making it. From the beginning, I was interested in the internet and also web, which was adjustable, the font and everything to all the users. And this is internet feature that I was so drawn to. Accessibility really has taken root on me to begin with. But after that, I read a book, Designing with Web Standards, written by Jeffrey Zeldman, or I heard the team, Lee, the founder of WSC, said the power of the web is its universality. And these really triggered me to become aware. And I decided that we have to make a web accessible, usable by everybody. But I became aware of accessibility strongly when my child was born. It's a recent event. Since I have a child, I went out with my child in a baby stroller. And in the train, my child started to cry because he or she wanted to go to pee. And I had to get out of the train. I got out of the train, but there is no elevator, only staircases. But I couldn't climb or go down up the staircases because I had a baby stroller with my baby. I'm deviating the story a little bit, but I realized that the station is not for the baby stroller users. Think about it. A train station is a very critical infrastructure should be accessible, usable by everybody, but I didn't realize that until then. That opened my eyes. And when I think back about my job, am I doing the thing that making a thing that accessible and usable by everybody? And the answer is no. What if my child was in wheelchair? Can she or he use my service well? Can I proudly say to my child that I'm doing this job to make usable for you? So I really get serious about accessibility since then. Thank you very much, Tomita-san. Well, in the beginning, you were aware of accessibility, kind of, in theory, through web, but through your real-life experience, you became even more aware, right? Yes. Thank you very much. So what about Hashimoto-san? Well, in my case, through my job, I became conscious about accessibility through my job in the beginning. I belong to a portal company, and my company offers the LINE News or product. We operate that. I'm the head of the design office there. So that here's my trigger to make me aware of accessibility, which is that the news service in the LINE news services is a very key family services up to now. We have been after the number of users and revenue or these KPIs, but not serious about the universal usability. We were after the revenue. Yeah, I realized that. However, from now on, I will talk about later, but accessibilities or maybe the refactoring, such as accessibility, takes the second seat, and that is the reality in our job. And so this is my story, was that recently LINE News released the dark mode as functionality. It's one of my triggers. As operation system, such as iOS and stuff like that, offers dark mode to the users as an option. So if it is a case, our service provider has to be put on that kind of infrastructure to provide the continuous and integrated experience to the user. That's our mission. So I thought about bright mode and dark mode and color differences between the two, and I was conscious about that. So we started to check color contrast of the service provided by our service operating companies. And then we started to think about the best color coordination as LINE service. And what can we do as a LINE service to provide the best color service color coordination? So this really opened my eye for the accessibility. So I thought about maybe we should provide this service to every user. And thank you very much for your good story. The dark mode support is really to some people it's fashionable. But you have a bright side and the dark mode to provide a contrast of the color to all the users, right? Yes, that's right. So let's go dive into it. So let's go to our next speaker, Masu-san or Master-san. How did you become aware of accessibility? My career start is not a web-related field, but I started as a salesperson for CAD, or I was a salesperson. But before that, in college, I started to use HTML and CSS. And just like Tomita-san, I was born with a text site and grew up with a blog. And then I met a web world.
What I wrote, content or text, will be accessed by unknown people, which was interesting. And when I touch skin of a blog, I can make letters bold if I want to emphasize that. So I can communicate with the people who have different language. So I went on different avenue in terms of a career, but pro bono is like a volunteer activity to support ALS patients who are using ICT equipment for communication purpose, and NPO who was helping ALS patients. And I supported NPO website using a line of vision. When I saw the people who are using a line of vision in website, I was impressed that website I created can be used by anybody. We have to keep website in such a way that it can be used by anybody. I think it was the trigger. And afterwards, I have been working in web industry, and the pillar in my job is what I do now. I see. Thank you very much. Then, as you created a website, that was the formative experience based on which you are developing a website. Yes. Thank you very much. Lastly, may I ask Ito-san? Yes. At the beginning of a website, I worked for sports newspaper, and I was involved in the operation of a sports newspaper, and I had to create athletes' performance table with TH and scope attributes, and I just made it public. And later on, the one with the screen reader gave me feedback by email saying that it was very good and easy to understand. And that's what I was told by the team leader at the time. I didn't know about the screen reader at that time, but I just wrote what I was supposed to do. But I was able to reach those people, which impressed me. And that was the starting point. I see. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to ask deeper questions, but Ito-san, I have a question to you. Is that semantic HTML you wanted to write, but you ended up with connecting to accessibility? Yes. It's just a two-dimensional table. On the left, you see 2006 and 2007, the year, and hit rate. The number of home runs will be plotted. So that is just a simple table like that. So semantics, I wasn't really aware of semantics at that time. TH is the header for table tag. That's why I was using TH. That's how I felt. So the fact that you had a logical markup ended up with what you do now. Yes. So Ito-san and Tomita-san, I have the same question. So as you're involved with your work, you had observation. So as an individual person, how did you get action for you to work? Were there anywhere you paid more attention? Tomita-san? In terms of work, what I noticed, I observed, I shared that with Slack, with the team members. if there is something I noticed or any room for improvement, including technical topics, I share knowledge with the team members. I see. Thank you very much. Ito-san, what was the change? At that time, it was a long time ago, so there was no Slack, no Git available in the field. So I visited the site we were operating and looked at the source, and it was not good. So I fixed it and I loaded FTP. So it was like a grassroots activity. Yes, you may call it. There weren't many people involved. There were just 5 people. And as this was a website of a sports newspaper, there was a division of labor, one in charge of baseball or the other in charge of soccer. So I was not interested in other pages. I was not interested in. So when I had free time, that's what I did. I see. Sounds good. So you have gradually improved. I think that can be an action individuals can do. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but that's what I was able to do. Discretion was given to me. Then you can't change design. Hashimoto-san, is there anything you can share? In my case, where I stand is a little bit different because I'm a group manager. Tomita-san, for Line News development, I have been doing that together. There have been accessibility challenges, but as a refactoring factor, it tends to be deferred. And I identified an area to change. I took an initiative and I led the organization due to organizational power I had. But by so doing, I convinced all the project members that we had to do it. And we established a project. Since it was me who was leading the project, I could do that. I see. Thank you very much. Yes, because of the difference in position, as you can take an initiative for the entire team, that is different. So there is uniqueness. It is an interesting action. Now, shall we move on to next topic? Next topic is this. Accessibility in organization. I asked you about the formative experience of individuals and also action you have taken. So sustainability of initiative means organization that will be very important. So as an organization, as an initiative, which will be a major factor, that is what I'd like to ask questions. Masuda-san, please. Could you tell us what is the action you are taking as an organization at the CyberAgent organization? I think there are commonalities with Lime. There are markup engineers who have been working for a long time, and currently they are called front-end engineers. And the media site is operated by us. And there are quite a few engineers who are able to do markup. In terms of the culture of the organization, we have a foundation for accessibility. And we have a foundation that enables us to make markup properly. So what I did was that proper markup needs to be raised to quality. You may wonder what does it mean when I say properly. So proper markup was defined. For example, when new employees joined us, even if they may be good at logic, but they are not good at logic implementation and markup. And this is what you are supposed to do. This includes what I was not involved in. But in terms of a guideline and appraisal indicators guideline was defined, and also we came up with a quality standard. And what we did, and although we had to do good markup covertly, that had to be defined as quality.
Then to show that we are contributing to the work, that should be the way for us to go. We did make the guideline and also evaluation incorporates accessibility, and also we offer study sessions to our stakeholders. The greatest achievement is that we incorporated the accessibility as part of the quality evaluation. Of course, this is only part of the story, not the entire story though. Thank you. So meaning that these days front-end engineers study only JavaScript, and they are engineers who know only the JavaScript. So you kind of realize the gap between the implicit knowledge and what we take for granted. There has been a gap, right? Yes, exactly it is. The front end expanded so much, for instance, like in case of CyberAgent, CDN implementation is taken care of by the front end, back end, front end implementation server, and the client logic implementation, design implementation, all are done by the front end, even though we have strengths and weaknesses, and we take care of everything. But in that, if your engineer is coming from the back end, then maybe in the beginning he's not good, but he's good at the design implementation. We have this kind of engineers, but we have to incorporate these talents into our group to work together. And we try to find a way for us all to work together. So in a dev-day session, you talked about the division of the labor between the markup engineer and the front-end engineer. Tomita-san is on the markup side. So I was very curious about how Line does it. And I waited today to ask that to you. So what about you, Tomita-san? Well, basically, we have a markup and the JS separated in our organization. We make a HTML mock, and also JSR takes the mock to check and implement it. And also when the implementation is done, then we check that with the verification environment to see if our intention is well incorporated in the implementation. But prior to that, we have a design check by design team led by Hashimoto-san. And that's what we do. Basically, we are based on the division of labor, and we work at our own pace. So do you have any difficulty by doing that? Because you have two different groups. Well, we always wonder whether our intention is incorporated, and we have to check that every time. For instance, like A tag, when you implement JS, we didn't care about A tag HS, but in the end, when we checked, there's only A, and there's no tag, so there's no link established. So we received the design, but we see some problem at each phase. So each phase has its own design issues and problems, but we have to interact with each other, exchange opinions to fix that problem at each phase. So for the design, you have to talk a lot to solve the problem. But tell us, Hashimoto-san, what interaction and exchange is there between the markup and designer? What do you mean between the design engineer and also markup engineer? What kind of exchange is there conducted by these two different groups? Recently, we have ASP enhanced. So we have like a tripling or guide sharing services, put that in the middle. And then we kind of exchange information about markup. But I have been with Line for 10 years. In the past, we didn't use a sketch or draw tool. We used Photoshop to draw it. We go after pixel by pixel for adjustment by drawing the design. And we shared the intentions in the past. But compared to the past day, these days our intention is not well communicated. For our product, we have a quality assurance phase in our company. But in the process, I think for UI quality assurance is my mission, and I take initiative in that. For instance, the markup engineer makes a beta version, and also we check using the real device to check and adjust the pixel. But I'm away from the front line workers, but very granular level of adjustment pixel by pixel, and the line UI team members are doing very well. But I shift responsibility to all of the engineers and work them very hard. But they are doing very well. Thank you very much. I really thank them. They are doing a great job. So this granular level and tuning is necessary for us to go forward. So UIT member and markup members were well upgraded for their skills. I deviated from our session, sorry. So you mentioned the QA, and Masuda-san mentioned quality assurance too. I have a question to you, Masuda-san. In case of CyberAgent, so markup accessibility is incorporated into the QA. Right now, in the QA phase, we haven't reached that far. We haven't gotten the assurance level yet. But partially, we experiment. When we were doing the behavior check, we used a keyboard to check and test the same items for testing. And also for the end-to-end testing, maybe use the keyboard for that. We try to link together with the QA. We try to do that. But it's difficult for us to systemize into organization. So we relied upon like a personal connection with, like a friend kind of a QA engineers. We did it all, but we didn't put out a good result out of it. So rather, right now, that's what we are going after. That's our goal. But the mutual review and the lean automatic testing will be expanded. That's our focus now. So we do not have accessibility as a quality assurance items yet, and that all depends on each individual engineer's viewpoint, and that varies. Maybe Rind is a good way to go for accessibility QA. Thank you very much. So we talked about QA and Rind so far. So Tomita-san, Hashimoto-san, and Masuda-san are developing for operating company. So you have to internally negotiate and adjust, right? So Ito-san belongs to client work. In this case, accessibility support, I don't know what to say this, but to that kind of concept, you have to agree with your client regarding the man-hour and the budget, and negotiate and agree upon with them. How do you handle this as a company about the budget and what can you do? Well, there has not been any request directly from the client asking for accessibility support. We are doing on our own because we know we cannot make everybody happy, and there is only so much budget and time, so we have to draw a line and do at the least minimum. And then when we negotiate with a client, when we think that it's fatal in terms of accessibility, then we make a proposal.
I see. May I continue? Yes. And we can be involved in requirement definition. Oh, I see. Or in design phase, we may want to get involved with the project. Otherwise, it's difficult to implement accessibility if design is completed. If they ask us to make it to website, if it's possible, accessibility implementation may be very difficult. We want to show in a separate way. I may explain it takes time and money, and I may have a negotiation. I see. The other side of the coin is that accessibility response is a norm for you. And if the cost is too high, you may have offline consultation with them. Yes. I see. If you are involved in requirement definition, there must be room for you to support. If accessibility is considered a norm, you can calculate man-hour. I think in terms of the one for implementation, I think it works. Yes. Accessibility response, in order to have more accessibility, we want to minimize non-accessibility work. So that is how we sharpen such a capability. So that is the philosophy we have. So if you sharpen other capabilities, you want to maximize the resource for accessibility. Yes. At home, I need to have more deals for making more money. The speed is most important at some point in time. And for remaining time, from customer's viewpoint, we can develop accessible site without additional cost that will make customer happy. I see. Thank you very much. It's interesting in terms of client work. I thought it must be difficult, but if you accelerate the speed, and also if accessibility is norm, that may be prerequisite. JS implementation is taken as one example for accordion and the model. What is the behavior in terms of animation? After you click, there may be asynchronous communication or not. This is an area where we may want to tune. Even without accessibility, we have to have a negotiation with the customer. At that time, if there is a bad UI, you have to sniff it so that we can lower burden for both ends. That is what we run. I see. Thank you very much. So, Ito-san, when you work, I visualized how you work. Thank you very much. Now, on to the last phase. Last but not least, I'd like to ask Tomita-san about what this industry should be, or what engineers can do from tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, that will be the next step. As the next action, what should we have? Could you give us a brief comment from each one of you? Tomita-san, can you start? As Masuda-san, Ito-san told us, so we have to do what we can do, hands-on, based on observation. I think it's important. Thank you very much. Hashimoto-san. Knowledge share is important. In other words, we have to set up an environment that allows us to share knowledge. That is what we do for this product in our design room. From a designing viewpoint, I asked the designer to study what is accessibility, and that was held as a workshop. That is how we can share knowledge. So accumulating such activities, designers' knowledge can be accumulated. So I need to create an environment that allows us to share knowledge, which is important. I see. Thank you very much. Masuda-san, please. Yes. Personal and team activities were addressed. So I'd like to talk about the company. What is the initiative as a company? CyberAgent has a CSR message for accessibility initiative. Since last year, we are emitting such a message for accessibility. So it is more like a social good, which is the starting point. But we'd like to have a product accessibility or the value because the products are accessible. If we can contribute to the business, oh, I realized that this is what I want to do. For example, if individuals start to do this or teams start to tackle this, and beyond that, this accessibility or one tool or one way of thinking can be adopted to contribute to business. So if some people got stuck there, I would like to think together, and we should think about that. I see. Thank you very much. Lastly, Ito-san, please. Yes. You may be using a smartphone or desktop PC. There's always a screen reader feature as a standard feature available. If you use that, you can see how website you create is read. Then it allows you to see what problems you may have. And how we can share knowledge is after that will be available. So you have to identify hidden problems of the site you create. I see. Thank you very much. So the one he may be seeing this with a mobile or desktop, I don't know, but please open screen reader. Now, I'd like to talk more with you, but unfortunately time is up. And this is the end of a panel discussion. And in this session, we talked about accessibility. We heard the individual of the trigger and also how you adopted accessibility philosophy to the organizations. And also, those are the things for panelists talked. For the audience, you may want to start accessibility now. And for you, I hope this panel discussion was why accessibility for you to take one step further. So, Tomita-san, Hashimoto-san, Masuda-san, Ito-san, for panelists, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.